Chase Young, the stinger. Anthony, I actually meant for us to grab this audio. So this one is on me. But after the game, on the day that Chase Young got hurt, I'm not crazy. Rivera said it's no big deal, right?
Yeah.
Like basically they took him out for precaution.
Yep.
What day was that game? Like the 8th or something?
Yeah, it was some time ago.
It's September tomorrow. In September. Not quite the 21st, but you get
almost 3 weeks though.
Yeah. It's been a long time. The point is that Chase Young is, I think, just unreliable at this point. And that might be his body being unreliable. That might not be remotely a reflection of his character. But as F.A. Obata goes on IR today, we are literally in the same exact place we were last season now. The starting lineup on Sunday, a week from this Sunday, which will start with the Take Command pregame show with Greg Hoffman and Logan Paulson on the Team 980, 106.7 The Fan, and streaming live on all the YouTube platforms. What that's going to look like is Montez Sweat, Daron Payne, John Allen, and James Smith-Williams and Casey Tuhill in a rotation. I think Andre Jones Jr. will probably play a little bit. I think KJ Henry is probably going to wind up being active. They re-signed Abdullah Anderson today to the active roster, which I thought was interesting because they did not sign him to the practice squad. It was Benning Patoe, and they just left Benny on the practice squad, and apparently they had told Abdullah Anderson, hey, bro, you'll be back. And now here we go, and we got the same thing we were a year ago. And we don't know. There's a chance that Chase Young is better. Rivera obviously didn't want to comment on it today. But Anthony, I feel like we're at a point where, almost like mentally you have to think about whatever we get from Chase Young is a bonus. Whatever we get from Chase Young, cool. But we can't think about relying on him because why every time we've thought we could rely on him since his rookie season, often through no fault of his own, but he hasn't been there.
Yeah, and it goes back to also, why the team, I guess, decided not to pick up, his fifth-year option.
Yeah.
I think you got to tie that into the equation as well. And it's just, again, your availability is your best ability. And time again, we're looking forward to Chase Young being on the field. And time again, there's some reason that he's not on the field. So, I mean, at this point, you got to roll with the punches. And actually, Ron talked about it earlier, having depth at the D-line position. And, we had people like Casey Tuhill, James Smith-Williams. They filled in last year. They were solid. They weren't, a number 2 overall pick, but, they were available. They played consistent. And that's really all you can ask for when, the guy that you invested so much in with that number 2 overall pick can't seem to get on the field for you.
I mean, they're always you can't make the club from the tub, and the best ability is availability. I think secondary to availability is reliability.
Yeah, that's
like they go hand in hand, obviously, but like availability, are you going to get out there? Reliability is like, what can I expect from you? And the answer with Chase so far, like, I hate this, and it sounds mean because, like, if he's hurt, he's hurt. But it actually speaks to, let me do this in fairness to Chase. Let me put the blame where it should be. There is a clear communications issue between Chase, doctors, and Ron Rivera, and thus the rest of us. Ron is the mouthpiece via the media to the fans. Or in your case, like to the media directly. We're in that middle step. Why does Ron keep saying things that, because it's not like, oh, Chase is going to be fine, but it's going to be a while. It's always like, oh, he'll be right back. And it's always, yeah, he'll be back this time, or we're anticipating this. We're hoping he's ready for the start of camp. We're hoping that he's back next week. We're hoping. Why are you doing so much hoping out loud? And maybe this is something, in the same family of criticism of what Pat McAfee and Lombardi, and I know B. Mitch was talking about this, like I talked about this yesterday. Maybe it's in the same family of criticism of Rivera just like doing a bad job of managing expectations in the media and having an understanding of what his words mean as a head coach. But it seems specific to this player a player that's supposed to be one of the faces of the organization and if healthy should be one of your best, there's a clear expectation setting communications issue. And I don't know where in the chain it is. I don't know whether it's doctors. I don't know whether it's Chase. I don't know whether it's Ron just wishing out loud. But they got to stop doing that. It's not fair to anybody. And, of course, it's not fair to us out here trying to get our hopes up on what could the Chase Montez Deron John line look like. That's secondary to. It's not fair to Chase. How old is Chase Young? 23?
I would probably say he's like 25.
He's 24.
Yeah.
He's 24. He's a 24-year-old hyper-famous athlete with a lot of attention on him. He's a young man. And to put that, Ron's 61, 62 years old. Who should be the grown-up here? And sometimes that's what this is about, is coaches can be so childish about certain things. And at the same time, so can players. And 24 is a young man, but is still an adult. So is it on Chase? Is it on Ron? And if I sound like I'm throwing darts everywhere, it's because I might as well be blindly throwing darts. I'm admitting that. I don't have a clue where in the chain of command we're having issues, but we're having significant communications issues with this player, this coach, and the microphone that spews that information to the rest of us. And it is 2 years running. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why they can't fix it. And if I'm going to put blame somewhere, I'm going to put it on Rivera's desk. And it goes back, actually, Anthony, to something you mentioned yesterday. 2 magic little hyphenated words that are really important. This is a coach-centric approach. And I know the guy that came up with that ain't here anymore. And I do know that the power structure's changed a little bit, but Ron's still in charge of the football operation. And he's still the head coach with a lot of power and a lot of sway. He's the one who opens his mouth, and ultimately in the chain of events that gets the information out into the public, he is the last one that can change the information. He could have said after Chase got hurt, we got to see what the doctor said. We don't know. He could have this whole time be like, guys, we don't, this is a kind of injury that we just don't have any idea, and it's unfortunate, and we just want Chase to get healthy. And then there's not pressure. But instead it's, he's doing everything. He's on track. He's on this. This shouldn't be a big deal. And here we are, how much into this? And it seems to be a big deal. It's frustrating, man.
How frustrating do you think it is for Ron, though, that, this guy Chase, just he can't really rely on him?
Yeah, I'd say it's hugely frustrating. It's part of the reason you keep 11 defensive linemen. And I don't know when they learned about the FA injury. He's on short-term IR, which sucks because he had a phenomenal offseason. He really played well at that 3 technique spot. He really played well. He would have surpassed Smith Williams, and he was going to be the starter on the outside. Mm-hmm. And now it's if Chase isn't out, we're back to James, which is not a bad thing. James Smith Williams is a good football player who actually plays very well off of Montez because they both just collapse the pocket. And part of the reason Deron Payne has 11 sacks last year, it was 11 and a half, whatever he had, double-digit sacks last year, is because if you watch Smith Williams rush, and Montez does the same thing. He's got obviously more juice and more in his bag on the other side. But they just the pocket. And quarterbacks have to step up, and you're stepping up into John Allen and or Deron Payne. And that's not a very fun step up in the pocket situation. And so there are worse things that can happen for this defense than a really good technical piece being in, but there's a better thing that can happen, which is the super dynamic former number 2 overall pick that had looked like he regained his explosiveness and was ready to play at a level that we haven't even seen from him before. Nevertheless, at least at the level he played when he won Rookie of the Year in 2020, he was going to come back. And now to that idea, it's he's questionable. I mean, not officially questionable. This is not an injury designation. I'm using the word in a generic sense here. It is a question whether he will be able to play week 1. And, if you're Ron and Jack and you're trying to prepare, like, it affects how you want to game plan.
Yep.
I mean, my guess is they had plans to use FA and James at the 3 technique and maybe even chase some there. Now I'm guessing you scrap that and you just say Smith Williams and Tuhill are going to be my 2 main rotation guys outside. Maybe on a 3rd down, if we want a little more pass rush juice, we bring in. I mean, Tuhill's he's gotten quicker and more explosive, and he had a really good rushing summer. So he'll get some of those reps for sure, but obviously Andre Jones has very high upside in that category. So I do think that Andre Jones Jr. is going to be in the mix there. But it ruins some of the stuff that you were hoping on and some of the things that you were excited about, right? Like there's benefits obviously to the continuity of 4 straight years in the system. Like that stuff's great. But what is also great is having some new and exciting things that keep guys kind of I don't want to say motivated, but engaged mentally. And I think some of these new packages that had a mix of some of the edge players with some of the interior guys mixing and matching in different spaces was an exciting thing for this group and something that felt like they were building something new as opposed to just doing the same stuff and trying to do it better. And if Chase is out, like that stuff is gone because your depth to be able to do that stuff disappears.
Yeah, talk about the single package, man. Talk about, being able to, line FA up in the 3 tag and have those 5 players out on, a 3rd and long or, even on the goal line or something like that. So it definitely does affect how you want to play something situationally. And again, getting Chase back, man, we need him out there.
Yeah. I mean, well, need him out there for what? And like, this is also the kind of weird part about it, though. They are good enough if they can get Obata back. And to be clear, the way the prognoses are right now, Obata is going to be out longer than Young. The initial reporting from Standig and Nikki and everybody who's reported on this is that week 1 is up in the air for Chase. But, as JP pointed out on Twitter earlier today, if they thought this was going to be a multi-week injury, they would have just IR'd him. Whatever the doctor said, it seems like it would be back week 2, week 3. If not, you're just putting him on IR and you can bring up yet another player, Yeah. William Bradley King at that point on the practice squad is next man up. They didn't do that. He's not on IR. Obata is. So it seems like Chase is going to be back before then. But I think like that's the problem. And this was also the problem last year. And it gets back to that kind of the communications expectation setting side of this, which is like being stuck in purgatory, being stuck in a week-to-week diagnosis is way worse for them than just knowing this dude's out for 3 weeks. Don't count on him. If you show up every day having to go, when is Chase going to play today? Like, that's not ideal. And that's kind of what happened to them last year. There was a couple games where they thought he was going to be good to go with the knee, and then he wasn't. Remember, he got activated before he was going to play. They wouldn't have activated him sooner. That's not to say that they didn't see things in practice and they needed, like, there was a process, and I think the process was fairly sound, and it was pretty obvious when he played last year that he still was not 100% back. It's good he got those games in and knocked some of the rust off and was able to gain a little bit of confidence. But at the end of the day, man, like, the day-to-day string it along stuff, that's what's frustrating. And, as much as I want to put the communication side of that on Ron, I can't imagine they're doing that if they actually don't know. Like, I think they think, like, there's something between Chase, the doctors, and the team where they're being led to believe, oh, he could be back tomorrow. He could be back next week. He could be back whenever. They go out and they say that, or some version of that, or hint that, or, leak it behind the scenes, whatever. And then the next thing happens and it's like, oh, he's not back yet. And then that gets to the frustration and the uproar. So, again, I don't exactly know where the problem is in the chain, but my guess is two things. My guess is that the expectations Rivera has are different than what Chase has. And two, it's on Rivera to not communicate his own expectations and to try to downplay it to protect his player. That's part of head coaching. It just is. And I don't think that they've done Chase any favors, even if Chase is doing them no favors. That's how the league works.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.